Welcome to Ask a Member, a program of the Adrian Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm Ann Hughes, president of the Chamber, and it's my pleasure today to welcome Mike Olsaver, who is an attorney and a partner with Robison Curphey O'Connell, a law firm headquartered in Toledo and also housed here in Lenawee County in Tecumseh.
Yes, hi Ann, nice to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again. Michael is has quite a relationship with the Chamber because he was our board chair, and he's also our attorney, and he is our past chair on the board right now.
That's
Thanks
true.
to Jim Coddington, who took off for India. You have a rather extended term, but we appreciate your expertise.
That's true, and
your.
we're always happy to help local community organizations and be involved in our community.
And you're involved personally with a number of organizations.
I am. I'm on the board of directors for the Adrian Symphony. I'm also on the board of directors for the Lenawee Country Club. And this past year I served as the co-president of my daughter's PTO at Michener Elementary School.
Okay.
So I have a lot to keep me busy.
A wide range
Right.
there, not to mention the time that it takes to practice law.
Sure.
So business has been good lately?
Business has been pretty steady lately. We've seen, I think, an increase in business over the last 6 months or so. So that's good news. And the particularly good news is that we've seen quite a bit of people creating new businesses or people interested in purchasing a business. So it's what I like to call the good kind of legal activity, as opposed to what we saw for 3 or 4 years, which was a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of payment disputes and pursuing payments and the sort of bad kind of legal work.
Probably
So
that gets wearing, I'm sure.
it does.
But,
So the last year or so has really been kind of encouraging in terms of the kind of work we've done.
Okay, so people, if they're thinking about going into business, they really need to think about an attorney.
They should, because what you do at the beginning can have a significant impact upon how your business turns out. Particularly if you are going into business with a friend or a partner, how you set that relationship up in the beginning can really have an impact on how your relationship ends if one person decides to leave the business. What we find is that having a set of rules in place beforehand decreases the likelihood that you end up at each other's throats if someone needs to leave the business for whatever reason, whether it be a financial reason, taking another job, or sometimes personalities just don't work out. So,
And as an attorney, you know what those things are that they need to keep in mind in determining what those rules or processes and procedures should be.
And we always say that, you know, the time to put those rules into place is when everyone's happy with each other at the beginning of an endeavor, when everyone's still friends, before any potential disputes arise, so that if a dispute does arise, there's a process for resolving it.
Okay. Now, what kind of cases does Robison Curphey O'Connell specialize in? I know you have Phil Bather is employment law, and and you have Catherine Moore, who just stepped down from the chairmanship of the Adrian College Board of Directors.
Right. Yeah, and so Catherine and I handle primarily the same kinds of cases. We do estate planning and probate administration. We also do real estate and business work. Phil, who you mentioned, does labor and employment law, so he advises employers with respect to all kinds of different employee issues. We have 38 attorneys altogether. Our main office, as you mentioned, is in Toledo, Ohio. We also have branch offices in Findlay, Ohio, Monroe, Michigan, and Waterville, Ohio. So we have attorneys that represent everyone from Fortune 500 companies down to individuals across all ranges of different legal needs.
Okay. What kind of law do you like best?
I really like doing the estate planning work and the business formation work. The estate planning work I enjoy because it helps families transition through a very difficult time. And in my position of doing both estate planning and probate administration, I've seen the difference between a well-planned estate that runs smoothly and an estate that wasn't planned well or wasn't planned at all that doesn't work smoothly. And that can particularly impact people that have small businesses or family-owned businesses, because typically someone with a business like that wants to transition that business at their death to maybe one of 3 children or 2 of 3 children. And so we have the ability to help them do that in a way that also takes care of that child that might not be involved in the business or want to be involved in the business.
Okay, wow. So someone was in that we talked to earlier commenting on the number of people who that they see, it was a financial planner, that don't have the legal documents that they need. They don't have wills, they haven't set up a trust, they don't have a durable power of attorney or health advocate forms. Do you run into that a lot?
A lot. Statistically, if you look at it, less than half of the population has any kind of estate planning done at all. So they have no will, no power of attorney to plan for a potential incapacity, which can be just as big of a problem as if you were to pass away, and perhaps more. But typically, statistics show that less than half of the population has that in place. And what a lot of people don't know is that if you don't have those documents in place for yourself, the state has a plan for you, and it's written through our state laws, and it may or may not be the plan that you want, but it's the plan that you have, whether you know it or not.
It's kind of like I'm from the government and I'm here to help you.
Right.
But that's not the kind of help that you want.
Right.
So you talked about businesses in transition. Do you do a lot of work with succession planning?
We do. A lot of our estate planning work is for clients that have businesses or have a family farm that has typically at least one of the children is involved in that business. So we spend a lot of our time talking about how do we transition to the next generation of that business to make sure that the children that want to be involved in the business are involved and end up being the owners of the business, and then make sure also that we take care of the children that are not involved in the business, because typically what happens with a small business owner or a farmer is that they have the majority of their assets, the majority of their worth is tied up in their business or in their farm. And what they want to do as a parent is treat all of their children equally. That can be difficult to do in that kind of circumstance. So we spend a lot of time talking with people about those issues and how we get around those issues.
Okay. Your firm in Toledo, and I know you've got the smaller offices in Findlay and Waterville and Monroe. Do they practice the same kind of cases that you do?
We have attorneys down there that do that. We also have attorneys down there that are primarily trial attorneys or appellate attorneys who are in the courtroom trying cases on a regular basis. We have attorneys who are commercial transaction attorneys who handle distributorship agreements, franchising agreements, those kinds of things. We really have attorneys that practice in almost every area of the law.
Okay, so whether it's an individual, a family, or a business, there's the right expertise at Robison Curphey and O'Connell to deal with those issues.
Right.
You said you go to trial. Do you practice criminal law at all?
We don't have anyone in our firm that practices criminal law. That's one of the areas that we do not practice in, and we would typically refer that out to another attorney that we have a good relationship with.
Okay. What about out of state, if there's issues that you're dealing with that need legal attention in a different state? Can you handle that?
It depends on the issue and exactly what needs to happen. Each state has their own bar association that you need to be admitted to practice law in their state. We have attorneys, one for example is licensed to practice now in Florida, so that if we have a Florida issue come up, we can handle it with our Florida attorney. And we have a few other attorneys that are licensed in other states around the country. But typically what would happen is if we don't have an attorney licensed in the state that you have a need in, we would assist someone in finding an attorney in that state. And one of the nice things about having a firm with 38 attorneys, some of whom practice across the United States, is that we can usually find a contact wherever you need to find one. I'm always surprised at the emails I get asking, does anyone know an attorney in this city? And sure enough, somebody does, so it's good.
Two things as we wrap up, Mike. If you were talking to a family, a young family, What one piece of advice would you give them?
For a young family, the first piece of advice I would give them is get a plan in place for if something unexpected were to happen to you. So if you were to unexpectedly pass away, how are your kids going to be taken care of for at least until they turn 18, and
Right.
probably more likely for most parents, they want them taken care of through college. So telling them that usually starts a very good discussion about all of the things that need to happen to do their planning properly.
And getting them to think about that, because when you're in your mid-20s, early 30s, that's not what you're thinking about.
Right.
You're still at the point where you think you're invincible,
Right.
and life's going to go on.
No one thinks it's going to happen to them, but unfortunately it does happen.
Yeah. And if you were giving a piece of advice to an entrepreneur or small business person, what would that be?
Sit down and talk to not just an attorney, but also an accountant, and do some very careful planning in the initial stages of your business so that you can avoid a lot of headaches later on. It's the old, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Okay, so be prepared.
Correct.
And understand. Very good. Any last words?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, we'll put the gavel down on this
Sure.
discussion then, Michael. Thank you very much.